Okay, so now I'm recording. And as I was saying, short stories, we're going to be doing short stories for the next 3.5 weeks or so. There's going to be, so we can actually just read the one today. I was planning to read that to you today because it's a shorter one. Also on the website, I've given you somebody that was reading it. They did a really good job with reading it. So you can listen to that if you prefer instead of listening to me. And then I got our little writing assignment to go through. And that's what we're going to do with all of these. You'll read it, and then you'll have an assignment to do from it. And some will be, a little bit of analysis, or some will be like creative writing or something from it. Okay? So that is what we're going to be doing. So let me pull up. Let me do some little share screen here.
Caitlin, you're giving me an epileptic seizure. I can't even pronounce it. You're giving me seizures,
Because
Caitlin.
you're having a seizure. That's right, Rowan. Because she's like doing this. Yep. Okay. So we're going to be doing The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And this was written in 1939. And what's fun about this is it was right at the beginning of World War II, sorry. So there were actually Walter Mitty clubs throughout the Army and the Navy and other places because of this story. It was very popular soon it was published. And it's pretty much about a man who just wants to escape his situation. And so there would be these clubs of these guys. They'd be like in the middle of a battle situation, or they'd be in a bar or something. And one of them would start fantasizing about where he wished he was instead, and everybody else would join in. So they would create these little Walter Mitty clubs of, I wish I could be somewhere else. And I thought you guys could probably really relate to that. So we're going to go ahead and read that. Let me get the right screen up here. There we go. And this was published in the New Yorker. It was actually 1937. And when it came out, it was just like hugely popular. Let me get a little bit bigger so you can read along. There we go. It's by James Thurber, who also wrote a lot of stuff. We're going through. The commander's voice was like thin ice breaking. He wore his full dress uniform with the heavily braided white cap pulled down rakishly over one cold gray eye. We can't make it, sir. It's spoiling for a hurricane, if you ask me. I'm not asking you, Lieutenant Berg, said the commander. Throw on the power lights. Rev her up to 8,500. Excuse me. We're going through. The pounding of the cylinders increased. Tapakada, tapakada, tapakada. The commander stared at the ice swarming on the pilot window. He walked over a twisted row of complicated dials. Switch on number 8 auxiliary, he shouted. Switch on number 8 auxiliary, repeated Lieutenant Berg. Full strength in number 3 turret, shouted the commander. Full strength in number 3 turret, the crew, bending on their various tasks in the huge, hurtling 8-engine Navy hydroplane, looked at each other and grinned. The old man will get us through, they said to one another. The old man ain't afraid of hell. Not so fast. You're driving too fast, said Mrs. Mitty. Why are you driving so fast for? Said Walter Mitty. He looked at his wife in the seat beside him with shocked astonishment. She seemed grossly unfamiliar, like a strange woman who had yelled at him in a crowd. You were up to 55, she said. You know I don't like to go more than 40. You were up to 55. Walter Mitty drove on toward Waterbury in silence. The roaring of the SN-202 through the worst storm in 20 years of Navy flying, fading in the remote, intimate airways of his mind. You're tensed up again, said Mrs. Mitty. It's one of your days. I wish you'd let Dr. Renshaw look you over. Walter Mitty stopped the car in front of the building where his wife went to have her hair done. Remember to get those overshoes while I'm having your hair done, she said. I don't need overshoes, said Mitty. She put her mirror back in her bag. We've been all through that, she said, getting out of her car. You're not a young man any longer. He raced the engine a little. Why don't you wear your gloves? Have you lost your gloves? Walter Mitty reached in the pocket and brought out his gloves. He put them on, but after she'd turned and gone into the building, he had driven onto a red light. He took them off again. Pick it up, brother, snapped a cop as the light changed, and Mitty hastily pulled on his gloves and lurched ahead. He drove around the streets aimlessly for a time, and then he drove past the hospital on his way to the parking lot. It's the millionaire banker, Wellington Macmillan, said the pretty nurse. Yes, said Walter Mitty, removing his glove slowly. Who has the case? Dr. Renshaw and Dr. Benbow. They're the two specialists here, Dr. Remington from New York and Dr. Pritchard Mitford from London. He flew over. A door opened down a long, cool corridor, and Dr. Renshaw came out. He looked distraught and haggard. Hello, Mitty, he said. We're having the devil's own time with Macmillan, the millionaire banker, and a close personal friend of Roosevelt. Obstetriosis of the ductal tract. Tertiary. Wish you'd take a look at him. Glad to, said Mitty. In the operating room, there were whispered introductions. Dr. Remington, Dr. Mitty, Dr. Pritchard Mitford, Dr. Mitty. I've read your book on strep psoriasis, said Pritchard Mitford, shaking hands. A brilliant performance. Thank you, said Walter Mitty. Didn't know you were in the States, Mitty, grumbled Remington. Coles to Newcastle, bringing Mitford and me up here for a tertiary. You are very kind, said Mitty. A huge, complicated machine connected to the operating table, with many tubes and wires, began at this moment to go pocketa, pocketa, pocketa. The new anesthetizer is giving away, shouted an intern. There's no one in the East who knows how to fix it. Quiet, man, said Mitty in a low, cool voice. He sprang to the machine, which was now going pocketa, pocketa, queep, pocketa, queep. He began fingering delicately a roll of glistening dials. Give me a fountain pen, he snapped. Someone handed him a fountain pen. He pulled a faulty piston out of the machine and inserted the pen in its place. That will hold for 10 minutes, he said. Get on with the operation. A nurse hurried over and whispered to Renshaw, and Mitty saw the man turn pale. Coreopsis has set in, said Renshaw nervously. If you would take over, Mitty. Mitty looked at him and the craven figure of Benbow, who drank, and at the grave, uncertain faces of the two great specialists. If you wish, he said. They slipped a white gown on him. He adjusted a mask and drew on thin gloves, nurses handing him shining, Back it up, Mac. Look out for that Buick. Walter Mitty jammed on the brakes. Wrong lane, Mac, said the parking lot attendant, looking at Mitty closely. Gee, yeah, muttered Mitty. He began cautiously to back out of the lane marked exit only. Leave her sit there, said the attendant. I'll put her away. Mitty got out of the car. Sorry. Better leave me the key. Oh, said Mitty, handing the man the ignition key. The attendant vaulted into the car, backed it up with insolent skill, and put it where it belonged. They're so darn cocky, thought Walter Mitty, walking along Main Street. They think they know everything. Once he tried to take his chains off outside New Milford, and he got them wound around the axles. A man had to come out in a wrecking car and unwind them, a young, grinning garage man. Since then, Mrs. Mitty always made him drive to a garage to have the chains taken off. The next time he thought, I'll wear my right arm in a sling. Then they won't grin at me. I'll have my right arm in a sling, and they'll see that I couldn't possibly take the chains off myself. He kicked at the slush on the sidewalk. Overshoes, he said to himself, and began to look for a shoe store. When he came out into the street again with the overshoes in a box under his arm, Walter Mitty began to wonder what the other thing was his wife had told him to get. She told him twice before they set out from their house in Waterbury. In a way, he hated those weekly trips to town. He was always getting something wrong. Kleenex, he thought, squibs, razor blades, no, toothpaste, toothbrush, bicarbonate, carbonundrum, initiative, referendum. He gave up. But she would remember. Where's the what's-its name? She would ask. Don't tell me you forgot the what's-its name. A newsboy went by shouting something about the Waterbury trial. Perhaps this will refresh your memory. The district attorney suddenly thrust a heavy automatic at the quiet figure on the witness stand. Have you ever seen this before? Walter Mitty took the gun and examined it expertly. This is my Webley Vector's 50.80, he said calmly. An excited buzz ran around the courtroom. The judge rapped for order. You were a crack shot with any sort of firearms, I believe, said the district attorney insinuatingly. Objection, shouted Mitty's attorney. We have shown that the defendant could not have fired the shot. We have shown that he wore his right arm in a sling the night of the 14th of July. Walter Mitty raised his hand briefly, and the bickering attorneys were stilled. With any known make of gun, he said evenly, I could have killed Gregory Fitzhurst at 300 feet with my left hand. Pandemonium broke loose in the courtroom. A woman's screams rose above the bedlam, and suddenly a lovely dark-haired girl was in Walter Mitty's arms. The district attorney struck at her savagely. Without rising from his chair, Mitty let the man have it on the point of the chin. You miserable cur! Puppy Biscuit, said Walter Mitty. He stopped walking, and the buildings of Waterbury rose up out of the misty courtroom and surrounded him again. A woman who was passing laughed. He said Puppy Biscuit, she said to her companion. That man said Puppy Biscuit to himself. Walter Mitty hurried on. He went into an A&P, not the first one he came to, but a smaller one further up the street. I want some biscuits for small young dogs, he said to the clerk. Any special brand, sir? The greatest pistol shot in the world thought for a moment. It says Puppies Barkford on the box, said Walter Mitty. His wife would leave the hairdresser's in 15 minutes. Mitty saw in looking at his watch, unless they were having trouble drying it. Sometimes they had trouble drying it. She didn't like to get to the hotel first. She would want him to be there waiting for her as usual. He found a big leather chair in the lobby facing a window, and he put on the overshoes and the Puppy Biscuit on the floor beside it. He picked up an old copy of Liberty and sank down into a chair. Can Germany conquer the world through the air? Walter Mitty looked at the pictures of the bombing planes and of ruined streets. The cannonading has got wind up in the young Raleigh, sir, said Sergeant. Captain Mitty looked up at him through tousled hair. Get him to bed, he said wearily, with the others. I'll fly alone. But you can't, sir, said the sergeant anxiously. It takes 2 men to handle that bomber, and the Archies are pounding the hell out of the air. Von Richtman's circus is between here and Solier. Somebody's got to get to that ammunition dump, said Mitty. I'm going over. Spot of brandy? He poured a drink for the sergeant and one for himself. War thundered and whined about the dugout and battered at the door. There was a rending of wood, and splinters flew through the room. A bit of a near thing, said Captain Mitty carelessly. The box barrage is closing in, said the sergeant. We only live once, Sergeant, said Mitty with his faint, fleeting smile. Or do we? He poured off another brandy and tossed it off. I never seen a man who could hold his brandy like you, sir, said the sergeant. Begging your pardon, sir. Captain Mitty stood up and strapped on his huge Webley Vickers automatic. It's 40 kilometers through hell, sir, said the sergeant. Mitty finished one last brandy. After all, he said softly, what isn't? The pounding of the cannon increased. There was a rat-tat-tatting of machine guns, and from somewhere came the menacing pocketa, 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 pocketa of the new flamethrowers. I love how everything has a pocketa sound. Walter Mitty walked into the door of the dugout, humming Après de la Monde, Blonde. He turned and waved to the sergeant. Cheerio, he said. Something struck his shoulder. I've been looking all over this hotel for you, said Mrs. Mitty. What do you have to hide in this old chair? How do you expect me to find you? Things closing, said Walter Mitty vaguely. What? Said Mrs. Mitty. Did you get the what's-its-name, the Puppy Biscuit? What's in that box? Overshoes, said Mitty. Couldn't you put them on in the store? I was thinking, said Walter Mitty. Does it ever occur to you that I am sometimes thinking? She looked at him. I'm going to take your temperature when I get you home, she said. They went through the revolving doors that made a faintly derisive whistling sound when you pushed them. It was 2 blocks to the parking lot. At the drugstore in the corner, she said, wait here for me. I forgot something. I won't be a minute. She was more than a minute. Walter Mitty lighted a cigarette. It began to rain with sleet in it. He stood up against the wall of the drugstore, smoking. He put his shoulders back and his heels together. To hell with the handkerchief, said Walter Mitty scornfully. He took one last drag of his cigarette and snapped it away. Then, with that faint, fleeting smile playing about his lips, he faced the firing squad. Erect and motionless, proud and disdainful, Walter Mitty, the undefeated, inscrutable to the last. All right, that is the story of Walter Mitty. What's happening there? What's going on? Did you notice what's happening with this guy?
He's daydreaming.
Yes. And who is he in his daydreams?
Everything he can't be now.
Yep. So he is, scroll back like the top. So at the very beginning, he's a commander on a Navy plane, and he's just making up stuff. I mean, he doesn't, he's all the little phrases and things are all just made up, but it sounds good. So he's in charge of a whole bunch of people getting them to safety. And then where is he really? What's really going on in his life?
They're just driving to town with his wife.
Yep. And how does his wife treat him?
Like he doesn't know anything.
She's kind of awful, isn't she? I don't like it when you drive so fast. Why are you doing this? Did you get this? She's a little me. So she doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in him, and she treats him almost like a servant. Okay. So what are the other things that he does? Oh, he's a surgeon. Okay. And all of this stuff that he, all these phrases, these are all made up. They don't mean anything. These names, oh my gosh, I can barely say them. So he's a surgeon who's saving an important person's life. And then, and that's when he's having problems parking his car. And then he was on trial, and he's this great man with a great shot. And oh, this girl falls into his arms, and I have no idea why that's happening. And then he has to go to the store and get puppy biscuits and overshoes. So overshoes, we don't really have them anymore. I remember my dad having a pair many, many years ago. They were just kind of like a larger shoe, and it was like a rubber glove kind of shoe that you'd put over your regular shoes. So you could wear those out in the snow and the rain. And then where you're going to like to work, then you take off that overshoe and you've got your nice fancy shoes underneath. That's what an overshoe is. We don't have those anymore though. Let's see. Oh, and then we have him as a pilot who's going to go up against the Germans. And then he's standing at the very end. He's in front of a firing squad. This is what's happening here. So he's about to be shot. And usually they give you a blindfold so you won't see it coming, but he's too brave for that. So in all of his fantasies, he's very successful, very needed. People want him, and he's got all kinds of power. Okay. People are trying to destroy him. And his real life is just this miserable life that he's got. He's got nothing going on in his life. Okay. So what else did you notice in here? Nobody's saying anything. I'll tell you. Well, so notice how everything has the same sound, pocket to pocket. He just kind of takes these different themes. So when I was mentioning that they have those, back in World War II, they had the Walter Mitty clubs. One of the phrases that they would say to get everybody going would be pocket to pocket to pocket. They would start saying that, and everybody would know immediately what was going on. Oh, it's a Walter Mitty segue. And they would all play in with this. They would all be fantasizing they're somewhere else, doing something else. And then like from a detail from one story pops up in another story of his. So you've got, you mangy cur, that means a bad dog, and it's like, oh, that's right, something for the dog, puppy biscuits. So he'd pull from one story to another, pulling this all together. Okay. So your assignment for this, let me pull up the other. Okay. What I want you to do is something very similar. Okay. So many of us have at one time or another wished to be someone else or somewhere else in order to escape an unwanted feeling or situation, like poor old Walter. Sometimes we want to escape because we are bored or uncomfortable, sometimes because we're unhappy. In The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, author James Thurber details the daydreams of a man who's attempting to escape his uneventful, unfulfilling life. So I want you to write yourself an escape from this classroom, your house. Okay, it used to be the classroom. Fill the page with your own fantasy, starting in your house, then somehow leave it. Okay? You may write any kind of scenario you wish, keep it appropriate, of course, and write yourself to where you really want to be, and like spend 20 minutes or so writing this. If we were in class, I would give you like 20 to 30 minutes to write this up and turn it in. Okay? So that's what I want you to do with today's assignment. Okay? Questions about it?
Should it be like first person?
Yes, absolutely. You can do I do this, I do that.
How feasible does this have to be? Like, how realistic are we making this?
Well,
I already know what
obviously,
I'm gonna write about.
yeah, okay. So Bucky Barnes may make an appearance, understood. It doesn't have
How
to be
did you
realistic.
know?
I don't know. It does not have to be realistic at all. This is for you to have an escape to just be like Walter Mitty. What do you really want to be doing right now? Who do you really want to be right now? Okay. Sky's the limit. Whatever you want to do. Okay.
This is the best assignment I've ever gotten in my whole entire life. It was made for me.
It's made for me because I do this all the time. I will be driving, so maybe I shouldn't confess this, but I will. So I'll drive up to Calais to go to Walmart. It's like a 45-50 minute drive for me. And I'm always writing stories in my head. And so I'll start writing a story and suddenly I'll go, where the heck am I? I don't even know where I am on the road. I mean, because it's all just trees. Like, did I miss my turn? I don't know, because I've just been wandering in my head for like 15 minutes. And then I come back and I go, oh dear, where was I? I've never gotten lost yet, but I am a very much a Walter Mitty kind of person to go, oh, I'm so glad I'm not the only one who does this.
You do not understand how many times I've done that. Like, I will be sitting just even on my bed, and all of a sudden I'll be like, bro, I have been sitting here daydreaming a completely different life for 30 minutes. I need to stop.
Yep. But it's fun. See, so now you're going to write it down, and it gives you some writing experience, some creative writing experience, some response, and you get points for it. So, like, awesome. Okay.
Great. I get points for my lack of mental health.
Yes, you should get something for it, right? If you've got
True.
you should get something.
Yeah, meds.
And if you get the right combination of meds, your imagination goes even crazier. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay. Yeah. So this will be due sometime before midnight tomorrow. Okay. So you got today, or you can work on it tomorrow. And then on Thursday, I will have another one for you. So this is going to be the pattern for the next few weeks. Tuesday and Thursday, we'll read through a short story, or some of them are longer, so we'll get you started on it, and then you complete it, and then there's a writing activity to go with it. Okay. So we're just going to keep that pattern for the next few weeks, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you've got a day or two to work on that assignment. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that feasible? We're all right with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. All right. Well, do you guys have any questions?
Nope.
Okay. So I will start grading research papers. It'll probably take me like a week to get through all of them because I've got stuff from my AP class right now too. They've got their test next week. So I will grade everything. Just that you don't expect it back by tonight. Okay. All right. Well, cool. If you guys don't have any other questions, then I will turn off the